Hi everybody and welcome back to Redline. And today you join us at the McLaren Technology Centre for the first UK drive of the all-new Artura. Now, I've been really looking forward to driving this car, so let's get out on the public road and see what it's like. So we are out on the road in the McLaren Artura. Before they let us out in the car, they went through a big PowerPoint presentation, lots of technical information. I'm going to commit that to some voiceover because there was some fairly complicated stuff in there, and the time that we have on the public road with this car is very limited. And what I want to do is talk to you about what it's like to drive. The Artura is McLaren's first series production hybrid supercar, and is new from the ground up. The new 3-litre V6 engine produces 577 brake horsepower, with another 94 brake horsepower coming from an e-motor, which means combined outputs of 671 brake horsepower and 530 foot-pounds of torque. For improved packaging, reduced lag and performance gains, the engine has been mounted at a 120-degree angle, with the turbos situated between the V. McLaren has also developed a new 8-speed twin-clutch transmission and integrated the e-motor into the bell housing. Powering that e-motor is a 7.4 kilowatt-hour battery, which can be charged up to 80% in 2.5 hours, offers an EV-only range of 19 miles, and speeds of up to 80 miles an hour with lift and coast regen. There's also a new e-diff which moves power around the rear axle and works with the new multi-link rear suspension to increase traction and reduce understeer. The carbon composite tub is all new and stronger than previous versions and is optimised for the hybrid powertrain. The brakes are related to those found on LT models, and there's next-gen Pirelli P0 tyres. Overall, the Artura weighs less than 1,400 kilos dry and has a din weight of under 1,500 kilograms, which is exceptional when you consider the hybrid tech. Okay, so we're on the roads around Woking, which is where we'll be performing the road test. There's a mixture of roads, including in town and also on some country roads as well. And what I want to do is talk to you about some of the first impressions I have of the car. Now, when you're in comfort mode and you slow down and come to a stop, just like that there, the internal combustion engine cuts out and it goes into electric power only. The transition between the two, and I'm not sure if you picked that up on camera, but the transition between the two is actually very smooth, which is great. And then as you move off, again, you're still in electric power only. Something else I'm oddly enjoying, and I'm not sure if it's the novelty factor, maybe it'll wear off after a while, but we're still driving around town at the moment, and I'm quite enjoying the fact that this thing is in EV mode currently. You just know that you're not annoying anybody, you know that you're not being antisocial, and that when you do find a great piece of country road, you can just put it into one of the sport or track driving modes and the engine's going to come back. And I mean, when you use a certain amount of throttle anyway, the engine kicks back in. But yeah, it's nice just being able to, I don't know, go around without shouting about it. It's quite civilized, to be fair. Yeah, very interesting. I'd need to spend more time with the car to tell you either way definitively whether that's something I'd enjoy long term, but certainly at the moment it's sociable and I'm enjoying it. Another thing, the view out of this thing is very, very good. So the scuttle's low, you've got lots of forward visibility, and the view out the back isn't too bad either, and also the blind spot, not terrible. Supercars always have a certain level of compromise just because of the general shape of the vehicle, but I must say, I mean, McLarens have always been great for outward visibility anyway, but this one is also particularly good. McLarens have never been renowned for their, shall we say, build quality, but this is by far the nicest McLaren I have personally ever been in. The materials are great, lots of Alcantara. I'm sure you can spec as much carbon in this thing as you want, although this particular car seems to be light on the carbon fibre. But the main thing is everything appears to be put together really well and built to a good standard. So yes, I think that's a big win as far as I'm concerned. Right, so we've put it into sport mode. So unlike previous McLarens, or even current McLarens, because you can still buy the 720S, over here there was an active panel, and then you could change your powertrain and handling settings. Well, all of these things are now on the instrument binnacle, which is good for two reasons, because first of all, they're much easier to reach, and secondly, when you do want to change the settings, you don't have to take your eyes off the road anymore. Just get around a cyclist. So on the left is handling, on the right is your powertrain settings. So I put it back into sport mode, but there's also a track mode, and before that you've got comfort, and there's an electric only mode as well. And unlike the active panel, you don't actually have to press a button to activate it anymore. It can just all be done on the fly using these sort of paddle type thingies up here. So very good. We're in sport, and one thing I will say is that typically McLarens have always benefited from really, really great ride quality. Now in this car it's still very good, but it's not quite as compliant as maybe a 570S was, or certainly not as compliant as a 720S is with its fancy cross-linked hydraulic suspension. This doesn't have that. This has a more conventional suspension setup, and you can definitely feel the difference on the public road, especially when the roads are like this, just a little bit busier. The low-speed ride quality is not quite to the same level. In a minute we'll get onto a sort of a more flowing country road and we'll see if it's any different, but yeah, not quite. Still very good, but not quite the level of compliance that we've come to expect from McLaren road cars. Okay, let's just see what this performance is like. Okay. Bloody hell, okay. Okay. That's quite savage. Right, okay, initial thoughts on that is that the throttle response is wow. So a 720S has, when you consider how heavily turbocharged it is, a 720S has very good throttle response, but this thing, because you've got the torque fill from the electric motor, it's now just bonkers. Any of the lag that you get in a 720S, you don't get here in an Artura. It just picks up and it goes. And the way it delivers the performance, it's strong all the way through the rev range. I've actually just had to unpop my ears a little bit. That's crazy. So 0 to 60 in this car, 0 to 62 rather, is bang on 3 seconds. 0 to 125 miles an hour is 8.3 seconds. So to 125, it's about half a second slower than a 720S. But out on the public road, you're probably not going to sort of feel that difference. One thing I will say is that you don't get the boost and the slingshot effect you get from a 720S, but this is much more linear in its delivery, and the performance is just off the scale. Top speed 205 miles an hour. Yeah, I knew it'd be fast, but maybe I wasn't expecting that. Sounds fantastic. I really like, so I recently drove the Maserati MC20, which also has a V6 motor, and I thought it sounded brilliant. In the Artura, it sounds fabulous. Interesting piece of road here. Now, obviously it's a McLaren, so we expect it to handle very well. And from what I can tell, the Artura is not bucking the trend. One thing I will say is that the steering is beautiful. They've stayed with the hydraulic rack, but this time they've recalibrated it so there's just a little bit more weight off centre, and it feels fabulous. You can feel every bump in the road, it's accurate, and this wheel trimmed in Alcantara just gives you that extra sense of tactility as well. McLaren make the best steering in the business, bar none. Let's get that out the way, and the Artura absolutely has that in abundance. The gearbox is a new 8-speed twin clutch. Gone is the 7-speed that you'll find in the 720S, and it doesn't have a reverse gear. That's now just down to the e-motor. Interestingly, it's not as sharp as the 7-speed gearbox. Now, it's not sloppy by any stretch of the imagination. Downshifts are still lightning fast and upshifts are really smooth, but it doesn't quite have the same immediacy. So maybe they just need to recalibrate the transmission a little bit for some faster down changes. But yeah, it's certainly not as savage as the 7-speeder in the 720S or in the 570S that came before this. This car effectively replaces the 570S. So. Oh, dual carriageway. Continue. Oh, that feels 720S fast to me. So when you're in sport and track mode, the battery tops back up again. One thing I've noticed is that the regen is not on the brake pedal, which is good because in a supercar you want smooth and progressive braking, and if the regen was on the pedal, it would just ruin the pedal feel. So I really like the setup that's here in the Artura, because you get the regen without it disrupting the driving experience. Okay, let's wrap this up. Now, I appreciate this video has been a bit smash and grab. We've even gotten the GoPro out, which we haven't done in a very long time. But our time with the car has been short. We will be getting this car on test in early 2023, so we can do a more substantial feature with it for the magazine and for YouTube. But I should talk to you about my first impressions of the new McLaren Artura as the engine starts back up again. All the things that we've come to love about McLarens over the last decade are present and correct in this car. So, fantastic steering, ludicrous performance, great gearbox, and just this usability on a British B road. But of course, we now have this e-motor and we have this new way of doing things. And you know what? I quite like it. I love the instant response that you get from the electric motor when you really put your foot down and get up and go in this thing. It is fantastic. And I also like just roaming around in electric mode. I know it sounds quite odd, but it's more sociable. You know, the internal combustion engine, people have learned to scorn the supercar. And I think with this electric motor, with the ability to sort of drive around in a, shall we say, a stealthy manner, I think it lends something to the supercar that we've not seen previously. So I like it. First impressions are very good, and we can't wait to spend more time with it. Finally, if you've liked this video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. We've got more great content coming, and thank you very much for watching.